Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, hit that like and subscribe button. It does really help the channel out. Lots of new people have become Pommy and Ozers, so welcome to you. Good day. We're here today to do the individual off-season reports of every club. So what we'll do here for all 18 of you is we'll look at what you've done, what the year was, looking forward to next year, give you a player that I'm really hot on next year, try and do your best 23. That's always fun. And we'll have a little bit of a discussion about it. A real nice keep-back discussion. And we'll chat. And I'm really excited about this one. So we kick off alphabetical order. Makes it easy. We've got a team in the A's. Adelaide CROWS. So they go into this year as the 8th oldest side in the comp. 14th, though, in game experience. So I think people forget they are quite a young side, the CROWS. People, I think, pigeonhole them as an established talent. So let's have a look at last year. Now, honestly, I just want to start off by saying the CROWS new logo, absolutely dancer. Absolutely, honestly, I'm a big, big fan of that. Now, their final ladder position last year was 15th. Now, I was very bullish on the CROWS, so apologies to CROWS fans for if I gave you any false hope. I really thought you guys were going to be thereabouts in the challenge. A big area was also Adelaide's home record. They were very woeful, to be blunt, at home. 5 wins, 6 losses and the 1 draw. And that's quite disappointing because this is where, the interstate sides, I wouldn't say have an advantage per se because the Victorian clubs, literally their away games are at home. But you want this to become a fortress, and at times they were very lackadaisical. Their interstate record, 3 wins, 7 losses. You know what? It's bad, but you can copy it. They are travelling interstate. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a different thing. But I think all in all, I think it's fair to say Adelaide were a big disappointment. And I think that puts pressure on Matty Nicks. Definitely, because I look at their list and I really do think Adelaide's list is incredibly balanced. I really do like it. I think they've got aces in the right places. I think they've got young players that I'd like to see them have a bit more faith in as we go more into it. But all in all, last season I think was a real poor metric for them to look at. And we look at their breakdown. So what we've taken here is the 5 most important stats, the stats that you guys and girls will get drummed down to you, particularly on this channel. We use more stats than this, but the media particularly will push this narrative. So obviously points 4 is incredibly important. It's one of my favourite things in the AFL media where they rank the teams who score points and then go, oh, this is a premiership window. And it's like, well, it's like saying in soccer, if you score 1 more goal than the opposition, you're always going to win. Like, it's a bit of a no-brainer, but they were really mid-table for their scores. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that is their against column ranked best, as in most prudent, hardest to score against, and 18th. And again, they were kind of middle of the table, 10th here. This is an area here that I think that Adelaide, when you look at their team on paper, there is a lot of goals, and it's something that I want to see. And at times I felt like when I watched Adelaide last year, they were way too cute with the ball. At times there was way too many touches. I don't want to pick on Rory Laird, but at times I find like Rory Laird gets a lot of the ball for the sake of getting the ball, where he needs to get forward and get into that forward pressure in that real intense area. Their turnover scores were very interesting. They were 13th, and this is another area that I'm looking at Adelaide with their players. You've got the development of Luke Nankervis, Mitch Hinge, then Isaac Cummins coming to this side. You've got players there that I feel can inject that and get that ball going back to front very quick. At times it felt like real laconic, and I know when Carlton played Adelaide, felt like at times it wasn't going to come out at pace out the back half of the ground. And I'd like to see them attack the corridor, and I think when Adelaide are playing well, and you look at the games that they play well, it's that quick handball inside, straight up the corridor, and then they're out running and spreading. Again, the 9th best side at defending turnover. This is a positive here. I always feel that if you can defend turnover, because it is such a big, big acquisition, this could be better, but we'd be talking a different thing. We'd be talking borderline 8 with that makeup if we had turnover scores in the top 8. Suddenly you'd see a good little transition there. The stoppage scores, 13th for scores for and against. This is quite funny because I feel like at times as well that when you look at Adelaide's midfield, it felt one-dimensional at times. It felt very flat-footed and one-paced. They've got players there that I feel like they can just unshackle and get there. Sid Draper is a really good acquisition, and we'll look at these stats with the players they brought in a minute. But defensive half, this is where it's really impressive. They do switch it pretty well from the back half of the ground. The issue was that was like from an organic kick-in or from an open play situation. I want to see this translate to turnover. I feel like at times Nick's got his side to drop deep and defend in massive numbers, which I felt like stagnated their turnover game. And again, a very good defence in the forward half. That forward pressure, you need to get the ball in more. And I always think that if you're the fourth hardest team to score against from opposition defensive half, it means you've got some good pressure there. That needs to translate on the turnover. You definitely need to. And you can see here the forward half turnover. Even though it was hard to get the ball out, they weren't maximising it with 13th. And again, themselves not really mirroring up with what I'm saying. They were the 15th best side at defending opposition forward half turnover. So that's their back half. So that's where they've got to be a little bit more prudent, a little bit more aggressive in that avenue. And let's have a look at the outs this year. When I look at these outs, apart from Rory Laird, it's not something that really worries me too much, if you know what I mean. I don't look at this when I see Golan, Hamill, Himmelberg, Ned McHenry, Patrick Parnell, Rory Sword, and then the second rounder themselves going out. I don't think this is a real bad outs. Rory Sloan, I feel like, was a big miss though. He is that like kind of metronome in the midfield. So I do think that was a big miss, and I highlighted that last year. I felt like he's that POD, that kind of steady head. But I don't look at these outs and go, okay, they're astronomical, because I feel like a lot of these players here didn't show enough to stay on there. And Elliot Himmelberg, yes, he's young, but I don't think he's really kicked on. And I think the players that play them positions at Adelaide are better. When we look at the ins, though, this is quite interesting. Neil Bullen is a fascinating one. And we've just talked about that forward half pressure. He is a magnet, but he's also a poacher as well and a provider. I think that is a real king acquisition. I really like that. James Peatling and Isaac Cumming. I think Isaac Cumming, that experience on the wing, and he is a pretty decent user, particularly with penetration. And we talked about getting the ball in. I really do like that acquisition. And James Peatling's been there and done it, in my opinion. He's been there and done it. He's a hard worker. He's a grafter. He can play inside and out. He's very agile. He's got incredible footy IQ as well, which really, I think, really suits what they're missing in that midfield core. Sid Draper is that POD they want, a line breaker, someone who's quick, someone who gets the ball on the boot, tries to make something happen. I think that's a real nice compliment, because at times I feel like they play a lot of defensive players in there. Tyler Welsh, I'm really bullish on this guy. He's going to develop in the Sandford, but he's one to look out for. And they got Melbourne second rounder and GWS's third and fourth in. So I feel like these are nice little picks and building blocks, particularly next year when they have two future firsts to use. So I think that's in a real good position. I think if you do like a very basic methodology of ins and outs, I think the ins and outs are a net W, because you can't count Rory Sloan. He's obviously retired, so due to injury. So I like that. And then we've had a crack at your best 23. So let me know in the comments. But I've gone Joshua Worrell, Murray, and McElhinney on the back line. I really do think that Maxi on that back line there is an interceptor. He's a real key cog in here. If they can free him up, he's a real dangerous type player. I can see him becoming like that kind of like Nick Blakey for Sydney in his second, third year. So I really like this acquisition. I like Lugnan Curvis and Mitch Hinge. I feel like you can rotate Cumming there if you need to as well. I feel like this could be a rotation spot here for a bit of POD. And Keeney and Murray, you've got the size there and they can defend. So I really like that back line. On the wings, I've gone Cumming and Shaw. I think Shaw is really impressed me last year. He's constantly in there. He's got a real good output. And I think bringing Cumming in there really does help. Dawson, I've gone as the centre man. And then at half forward, I've gone Ben Keys and Neil Bullen. I think you've got a nice bit of pressure there at goal kicking. My key positions, I've gone Fogarty and Thilthorpe. Playing Walker as the third, which I think he can work up the ground, create space for Isaac Rankine in that forward pocket, and Neil Bullen. I'd like to see that set up. And then I've gone Jake Saligo and Laird as my on-ball pairing. I think Jake Saligo is going to have a real big year, and I think he's really underrated at the Adelaide Crows. Riley O'Brien, obviously, I'd imagine will take the rug spot. And then my 5 on the pine, I've gone Peeling, that versatility, if you can play him inside out and where you need to him. Josh Rochelle, who I think is going to get some more mid-minutes this year. Hugh Bond, Pedler, might be a surprise, but I think them 20-odd goals last year, he's got that ability to poach. And then I've gone Sidney Draper. There's a few players there that I think could get in there. Dan Curtin is going to be one that I'm going to look at, particularly in that taller wingman role. I really like that. I do think he's got to get some sustained form in there. Milwera is going to be another one if he can stay fit and use him as and when you need. He obviously gives you a nice little bit of injection in there. But I do think that's a real well-balanced and solid 23. Let me know. And then we look ahead to next year. I think it's a big year for Jake Saligo. I really do feel like Jake Saligo is going to be the one to watch of this team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing another year in him. I'm really impressed at the fundamentals he's added, but also he's really added on the things that he was good at in his draft year as well. I like the fact that I can see how hard he works, two-way running. He's got a real nice penetration on his kick, and definitely starting to see his distribution is a lot better. The one that I'm watching in the reses, the Magoos, Dan Curtin, I'm big on this guy. I still feel that he could be one of the best players of his draft class. Starting to add games. Some of the Sandford games last year were really impressive, and someone that I'm looking at. And the tier pass score, what I've done here is gone 1 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18. I had them in that, so this is a tier 2. I think 6 to 12 will be a pass score. So based on that, probably 10th. I think they can be a smoky for the back half of the year. It's very interesting as well when you look at their fixture list on that consensus. It was one of the easier ones we discussed, if you remember. We talked about this quite at length. It was in the top 6 of easiest fixtures, which obviously, read into that as you will. But I do think they've got quite a favourable fixture. And a big part of that for mine is going to be their ability to really make sure that they win their home games. If they can win their home games, they are going to be there and abouts. But having the 6th on the consensus, it's the 9th easiest if you go with what the bookies are. It's a real wait and see. So that is Adelaide Crows. Let me know, Adelaide fans, what you're thinking this year. I'm quite bullish on you guys. I can't wait to see what 2025 has to offer for you. But I do think Matty Nicks is going to be under pressure, because I don't think if they're pushing for finals this year, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go. Peace, love and light. Pommy out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad.